Hello, everyone. Happy Cinco de Mayo, Monday, May 5th, 2025 here. Anthony Broom with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey here on the Wolverine.com podcast, a Monday night show, a live show, because we anticipate there are going to be questions throughout on this one. We have a lot to get to today, namely the reported potential self-imposed suspension for head coach Sherrone Moore, stemming from, again, as the saga turns with Michigan versus the NCAA, trying to get that wrapped up. That's something that's on the table now. We'll discuss that. Also take your questions throughout. Fellas, the first time the three of us have been here together in a little bit. Good to be back.
Lots of vacation time, huh? Clay, did you hit the links out there in Arizona?
Yeah, and I was on the last episode as well of this.
That's a good point.
So, yes,
Yeah.
golfed a couple
Oh,
times.
yeah,
And,
that was you.
And golfed over the weekend as well a couple times. This here in the great state of Michigan. So it's had a little bachelor party. It's that time of year.
Congratulations! I didn't even know you were engaged.
That's right. Yep.
Well, good for you, man.
Right on.
Maybe we'll invite to the wedding there, Anthony.
I hope so. I pay it forward a little bit here, but anyways, we will
not my bachelor party for the record.
Oh, okay. Well, there you have it.
Well, we'll be there when it is. We have a lot to get to, whether it's the Sherrone Moore suspension. We'll talk about the sign gate punishment still on the way. Maybe view some of it through the lens of the 2025 season and take your questions as we do every Monday night. But before we do that, we are brought to you, of course, by our friends over at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. Again, now the weather's changing a bit here. Golf weather, golf season's upon us. You want to wear stuff a little lighter out there, though. I'm saying that. I don't know if they have any golf shirts, but you want to wear a hat out on the links. There you go. They got stuff there for you. You want to wear some lighter stuff around the house. Still a little chilly in the morning. If you want a sweatshirt or joggers on, they've got you covered there over at homefieldapparel.com. I'm looking at the national champions bomber jacket right now on my screen. And the collection's great, whether it's the jackets, like I said, the sweatshirts, joggers, all that stuff and more. We love our friends down there, Connor and team down there in Indianapolis, as we always say, the heart of Big Ten country. So support them today. Use promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order over there at homefieldapparel.com. That's promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. We're also brought to you today by ourselves at the Wolverine. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for $1. It's what Clayton Safey he coined the term. It's the best deal in America. So take advantage of that. It's going to get you behind the paywall. It's going to get you in on some of these subscriber chats. We had a Chris open an impromptu one today with the Sherrone Moore stuff, recruiting trail, analysis, whatever it is, we've got it behind the paywall for you. So join our community. It is a bustling community, always a lot going on over there. So use that promo code UM1. All right, boys. Well, Monday came with the news that it appears Sherrone Moore will serve a 2-game suspension this season, or at least it's proposed that Michigan will self-impose one for the Week 3 game against against Central Michigan at home and Week 4 at Nebraska. We'll just start with that. Chris, you put out an article today on that and also some of the other potential things that could be in the works here. So I'll just give you the floor. Let us know where we're at with all that. And is this something that is it a proposed self-imposed, or is this going to happen?
Yeah, well, it's expected to happen, right? And in fact, it was, I think, ESPN that broke it this morning. But when we were working on the story, phones started blowing up, guys, and the texts at about 7 o'clock that, hey, be prepared because it's going to be a busy day for you. And it certainly was. We had a sit down with Dusty May today, scheduled at 11 o'clock, and I was almost late while we were working on this stuff because obviously everybody wants to know what's going on with Sherrone Moore and a potential 2-game suspension. And what we've been saying is basically what we've said is what we've been saying for the last several months, that the penalty that the NCAA wants is Sherrone Moore suspension at some point. And from what we've heard from several sources extremely close to it, that it was initially a lot more, and again, this has not been accepted by the NCAA yet as the final punishment or anything like that. But we'd heard, initially, boy, maybe he gets a year, but then it was maybe 6 games. And, so Michigan, I think, is looking right now at, okay, this is what we're willing to accept. And it's a 2-game suspension. Does not want to miss the Oklahoma game. That was made clear to us several weeks ago. He's going back to Oklahoma, his alma mater. He really wants to coach in that game. So there were a couple things in play here. One was the timing of it. If they're going in front of the Committee on Infractions on June 6th, I think it is, would there be a ruling before September, whatever it was, when they play Oklahoma? So they thought maybe it might come in the middle of September. So they said, okay, we'll go games 3 and 4. More than likely, it's because Sherrone Moore doesn't want to miss that Oklahoma game. And we'll see if the NCAA even accepts that. Maybe they say it could be 4 games when they go in front of the Committee on Infractions, if you want to work this out. Or they might accept the 2 games, or they might just say, hey, it's got to be the first 2 games of the year. So that's what we don't know at this point. And then the other potential punishments, these are things that have been raised as possibilities that we put out today, that, okay, these are things that they might include to sweeten the pot, so to speak, when it comes to punishment in terms of recruiting, some recruiting cutbacks, some official visit cutbacks, and things like that. So, and of course, again, and as we said in the article, these are proposed, and these are the things that we've heard and that we've seen that are being brought up as potential punishments. But it does seem, there's no question that it seems very likely that at least the 2 games will happen, that Michigan has agreed to that. And then it is up to Sherrone's lawyers to negotiate from there. So Sherrone does have his own lawyers working on it, just like Michigan's other coaches involved had lawyers working on this. So, and then, of course, you've got the Michigan side of it. These are the proposed punishments as well from the Michigan side. So lots still to uncover here, and lots to really think about. But at this point, if you can take this, and if this is the final word on it, and everybody's like, well, does this mean it's over? No, it doesn't mean it's over. It just means that the Sherrone Moore piece of it's over. Then you're going to have the Jim Harbaugh and the Connor Stallions piece, which is probably going to involve show causes, we're hearing, fines. But again, we have not heard anything from any side, NCAA or Michigan, about any vacating victories or postseason bans or anything like that. So this is where we stand right now.
I think in addition to Oklahoma being Sherrone Moore's alma mater too, I mean, I think if you're going to self-impose and pick and choose what games that you want to suspend for, it's a little bit easier to get a couple game weeks under your belt with the full staff, operating as normal. And then, obviously Sherrone Moore is going to have then go away for 2 weeks, and not just the game day. They passed last year that if you get suspended for a game, you're not able to be with the team the entire week leading up. So 2 full weeks, that Sunday in between, not with them. I think, especially with all you have to replace and whole new offense and everything, having everything in place for a couple weeks would make some sort of sense. But either way, ridiculous to be serving a suspension for deleting and then turning over innocuous text messages. 2 games is harsh enough, and the fact that that might not be accepted by the NCAA as enough is ridiculous. To be honest, level 2 violation, and we're talking about a case that may not even be that major in terms of how many games that Michigan's claiming, maybe 8 or 9 games that some low-level staffer scouted in person. The NCAA's admitted themselves that it provides a minor competitive advantage if you in-person scout. So again, an overblown case, things being overblown in it. And I think a lot of Michigan fans are extremely disappointed with the way that, the athletic department, the university are handling this, because they were told, in Michigan's response that we're willing to fight. We want to have this pre-hearing meeting and all this sort of stuff. And now here you go, suspending your own coach again, all for not knowing whether or not it's going to be accepted by the NCAA. The last time they did this to their own head coach, the NCAA didn't accept it and gave him a 4-year show cause and a 1-year suspension on top of it. And he left anyway, probably because you took a baseball bat to his kneecap in part. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out for Michigan. But I think a lot of fans are disappointed with the way things are playing out.
Disappointment is certainly the word. Something that the first thing that comes to mind when you see that he is, that they've sort of handpicked the games for him to be out, is that I just, there's a part of me that thinks that's just not going to fly, because the NCAA, like we said before, was the Harbaugh suspension, and you guys can correct me on this, was it originally proposed to be 2 games at the start of that year and they tacked on a third, or how did that work out the first time around?
They wanted to do 4 and the NCAA didn't accept it. Then they self-imposed 3, I believe.
Okay.
Right.
That's the biggest maybe concern, and since we're talking concerns here, is that the NCAA is going to say one of 2 things. The first being, no, that's not going to fly. You have to sit out these first 2 games, including the one that involves your return trip to your alma mater. Or 2, they accept the 2 games and go, okay, yeah, we'll take those 2 games in addition to those first 2 games as well. Because that's what we've seen the NCAA do throughout all this thing. And I'm not, we're going on year 3 now of talking about this sort of stuff. So I'm not necessarily going to go back into the, NCAA is being too hard on Michigan. At this point, this whole thing's ridiculous. You're suspending a guy or want a guy punished because of the implication of what deleting text messages looks like. I think that's ridiculous. But, I'm also at a point, and I think a lot of fans are here too. And we will take some questions throughout just as people ask them. Mr. Dave wonders, is this separate from the sign stealing? No, this is that case. This is, not tied into stealing signs per se, but it is part of that case and that investigation. So
the cooperation,
me,
the big word,
or lack thereof in their words. So for me, it's I think I have come to this point, and I think a lot of Michigan fans are probably at this point too, where whatever gets this wrapped up the quickest, I do think that whatever happens to Sherrone Moore is going to be the extent of what happens to the current Wolverines or the accomplishments that came from the teams he was involved with. From there, it's all on the guys that aren't here anymore and whatever the institution has to pay. So it's been an interesting day, obviously, interesting few days, also with the news that Santa Ono is on his way out the door. But in terms of, pivoting back to Monday's developments, some of the other things that might be on the table in terms of punishments for Michigan, the coaching staff, I know there's some stuff on the recruiting trail. Chris, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, just that they are talking about official visits, maybe marking them down. You know what? It's been such a busy day. I even forget what's in the article. We put it up so early this morning. There were some Friday nights that Sherrone Moore might not be able to go on the road recruiting. I think that was another one in there. So just some general, and I think something about 20 visit dates or something like that they were eliminating potential unofficial visit dates or something. So these are things, again, being proposed that they could lump in with this 2-game suspension that's expected. That again, I hate to say sweeten the pot for the NCAA, but from what we've been told in the negotiations from both sides, these are things that at least have been well received. And it's like, okay, this is something that we can work with, other than, whatever some of these idiot bloggers are saying, well, burn the program down, they're going to get the death penalty, so on and so forth. So it is basically at this point what's going to appease them so that this goes away. Sherrone Moore can go ahead and coach, and we can get on with business. So, and everybody's like, well, I thought they were going to fight him to the death, so on and so forth. And what we said, and what was said in Michigan's response to the NOA, as Clay said, was, hey, you're overstepping here. This is ridiculous. But at the same time, if you can negotiate it and say, okay, a 2-game suspension for our coach, maybe some recruiting cuts and maybe a fine or something like that and some probation, then you take it and you move on and you put this behind you. So it has nothing to do, again, somebody over here is saying, oh, Ono left, so the president left yesterday and this happens today. These are completely separate issues. Santa Ono leaving has nothing to do with Michigan football or this investigation or sign stealing or anything else like that. And again, there's been no talk whatsoever from any credible journalist of vacating wins or postseason bans. Initially, the NCAA came out swinging and was making all kinds of threats, which we reported last fall, which didn't go over very well. So, but when things happen, we report them. And so we'll see where it ends up. But to me, if this is the final word on it, then you take it and you run with it. And it sucks that you're listing your head coach for a few games again, but then this goes away and we don't have to deal with it anymore. It certainly has taken about 7 years off my life.
I think the if this goes away or not is really key. And like I slammed the process a little bit there, but there is some tact to it. And I wanted to go back, like Anthony. I don't think this is my understanding of it. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Like they can't tell Michigan, no, you're not self-imposing Sherrone Moore for those 2 games. They could add on and say it's the first 2, as you mentioned, Anthony. But as our On Three's Andy Staples wrote today, that Michigan can appeal that, and then given the timeline that he's observed over the years with following and covering a lot of these cases, that appeals process would not be over till after the season, and the further games, let's say it's 2 more just for the sake of argument, would be in 2026. Then I would say and probably look back, okay, there was some tact here. Yeah, it's stupid that the NCAA wants this amount of flesh, but you got away with saying, okay, he's coaching the first 2, sitting out the next 2, and then 2 the next year, probably the first couple games. So I do think that that being a possibility, as Andy wrote about, is maybe part of, as he called it, the gamble or the hope that goes along with this calculated risk, as he put it, in what Michigan's doing. But yeah, the recruiting stuff, I mean, it's not totally minor either, right? Right now, their coaches are off the road, stemming back to the Burgergate situation. If you're going to limit more in-person recruiting days, and things like that, that does hurt a little bit. You're off to a slower start in the recruiting class, although you were last year too, and you finished number 6 in the country. So it can't, it's not like you can't make up some ground, but it's all pretty significant, and I think that we can't overlook how significant it is to miss the week before a game. I'd rather have the coach during the week and not at the game than, and I know you don't get to pick and choose between these 2 things, but then, not have him during the week and have him at the game. I think the week is more important. So the fact that they changed that rule, another rule change that comes from Jim Harbaugh, just like the satellite camps, which was bizarre and made no sense anyway. They banned the satellite camps, and then everyone is like, wait a minute, you can't do that. Then they're like, all right, they bring them back. But the hatred they have for Jim Harbaugh seems like what they have against Michigan, it goes back many, many years here.
Clean up a couple quick questions here. Keegan Imhoff says, are they trying to slap them for the Weiss thing too? It's completely unrelated. That's not even remotely a consideration here. Tommy Grace the third says, at what point will the NCAA just leave us alone? Was Jim Harbaugh's second 3-game suspension in 2023 for nothing? And I think that's so you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Sherrone's involvement in this specific instance is the text messages and also being, I guess, technically a repeat offender.
Yeah.
I think 2 games for deleting text messages is, I think, arguably wilder than the suspending Jim Harbaugh for the burger stuff, because there was other stuff that was tied into that as well. The text message thing, especially when you get the information you're looking for anyways through a third party, imaging your device, because the NCAA is not the FBI. They're not the police. They can't demand you turn over devices. They can certainly hold that against you, though. I don't know. I just think the implication of what the deleted text messages look like, to suspend 2 games for that, and if it winds up being more for that, I just think that's one of the most outrageous things I've ever heard.
Well, it's failure to cooperate. And that's, initially you see that your coworker's been involved in something unscrupulous, right? And you're like, oh my God, I've been texting this guy, whatever it is, you try to disassociate yourself, right? I think that's your first instinct, was like, holy crap, I don't want anybody thinking I'm involved in this. So you delete your text messages, and then even though there's nothing there, nothing incriminating there, they're going to come back and say, well, you weren't, there was no investigation going on at that point or anything like that. It was just like, okay, boy, this is what's coming down. And so almost like a panic move, in my opinion. So,
yeah,
but there's nothing on there. So 2 games for that. And it's almost like they're saying, okay, well, don't mess with us. You should have given your phone to us, and you should have volunteered information that didn't have any relevance to this case anyway. So I don't know. But to me, again, and I'll say this, as we've said for several months, as this has been proposed or been talked about, where we know that Sherrone Moore's lawyers have been working on this on his behalf. Like, okay, do you accept this if it means it goes away? Then yes. But if you're doing this right and there's still no guarantee that this is the last word on it, then to me, that's just you're not doing your job if you're a Michigan. And I'm not a lawyer, obviously. I think that they feel really good about, okay, this is going to be it for Sherrone, and nothing harsher is going to come from the team. But I'd certainly like that guarantee before I offered up my coach for a couple of games, fellas. So
Yeah,
that's part of the concern here too.
And they haven't gotten that guarantee because it would be a negotiated resolution. I know
Right,
that's
exactly.
that's a big fear. And to Anthony, to your point, like Sherrone Moore is pretty much being charged with exactly what Jim Harbaugh was from the Burgergate situation. Different things. He deleted the text messages. Seems a lot more minor. Jim Harbaugh said he didn't recall, the whatever purchase and of his burger. And then he said, well, actually, if it was someone ordered a burger for breakfast, it must have been me. Who no one does that. At least he's a little bit self-aware on the burger order. So so it's kind of the same thing. And 3 games wasn't enough for them on that. So the ridiculousness of it is apparent, and I couldn't agree more. But yeah, to think that it is probably going to be the end of it, I would guess not, but I guess we'll see and find out more during this committee on infractions hearing, which is going to be hopefully live streamed. I would assume not, but it would be entertaining. I guess I think that might be a Saturday though. It's like, just leave me alone. Don't live stream it.
Can we go? Are we allowed to go? Is it like a trial?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
If so, we'll be down there. I can guarantee you. I know some reporters that would be there in the front row. So really excited, hardening nipples. So did I say that out loud? Can I say that on the podcast?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can't edit this out.
I can't even bleep that out. Okay, well, well.
I think I'll bring us back.
Yes, thank you.
I think when it comes to how we discuss this, like at this point, it's just clearly you have to discuss where we are with it instead of how it should be or what's fair, how we'd like it to be. Is this going to be the end of it? I doubt it, just because it seems like every time Michigan stepped up, be like, hey, we're willing to do this. We'll self-impose this. There's some other kind of, I don't want to see it, not even a development, just some kind of added twist to everything. So regardless, again, I will hammer home, accomplishments are safe, championship safe, wins safe, all of that stuff. None of that is on the table. And the people that have been plugged in on this, and yes, even I know the fan base isn't crazy about old Pete Thamel, but that's, everything that he has reported has been consistent with things that Chris and our site have reported as well, in terms of we need to stop worrying about all that. Like at this point, it's going to be Sherrone, maybe some recruiting stuff, the guys who aren't here anymore having to eat something, and they go from there. But yeah, I hope it gets wrapped up quickly. I want to move into maybe procedurally what happens here next. Let's just assume that what is on the table right now is what we'll see this fall, where Sherrone Moore misses these 2 games. He's going to have to deal with a suspension. He won't be able to coach during those 2 weeks. Clayton, I know you put something out on potential interim candidates. I would assume it's one of the coordinators, but operationally, how does that affect you when, again, I know that you've got that momentum from fall camp and you've got game weeks established, but Central Michigan, don't get me wrong, fire up chips all the way. I'm an alum, but that's a tune-up game. You got a league game the next week at Nebraska on the road. And that's, we think that Michigan should win that game, but that's not a gimme. And to not have your head coach there. And I guess for me, especially when the biggest concern with any head coach suspension is the player leadership. It does become incumbent upon the players to kind of take it up. And maybe that's where it's great to have guys like Rod Moore and Max Bredesen back on this team. But, it's a part of the reason Michigan was able to push through that a couple of years ago with Jim Harbaugh is that they had a really good set of player leaders there. And, this is a fairly young football team still, especially at some of the more kind of critical positions on the field. So, what do you guys feel like are the on-field ramifications of if this does go down?
Yeah, well, somebody here said, why can't Sherrone coach during the week at practice and not game just like Harbaugh? Because that rule was changed, as Clay said. after the Harbaugh thing. Well, clearly it didn't work to the way they wanted it to work, right?
Yes,
so,
exactly.
And they won. So, gosh, darn it, we better take them away for a week, knowing that they were probably going to be suspending Sherrone Moore, I guess. So, and it probably isn't specifically reserved for Michigan, but still, it's hard to not think that way at this point, right? As much as the NCAA has come after Michigan and all of this. So, I think you have to go with an offensive assistant. And I know that Clay mentioned Biff Poggi, but somebody who's in the day-to-day management of the game plan, which I think would be like a Chip Lindsey, right? Maybe as your interim head coach, maybe it's Wink Martindale. But, when it comes to interim head coaches, it's usually not the defensive guy, right? So although I think that they have done it in the past.
They've done everything.
Yeah, exactly. They've had to do everything. So so maybe it is him, but he's got the experience. But I think it would be somebody with the day-to-day planning of the game plan, and probably offensively more than defensively would be my guess. But nothing would surprise me at this point, right? Maybe they do one of each again. I think Jim Harbaugh did it to get each of these guys some head coaching experience at some point, saying, hey, let's make lemonade out of these lemons here and at least give these guys some head coaching experience. So I don't know what direction they go. I don't know how long it's going to be exactly, but that would be my guess, is that, okay, somebody who is involved in it and is hands-on in it. So when it comes to Biff Poggi, I don't know that he's going to be that guy in there, with the X's and O's and everything else. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But again, I think the Committee on Infractions, the meeting is what, June 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So, right, exactly. So we'll find out more then, obviously. But wouldn't it be nice if they could get this thing resolved before they even go in front of the Committee on Infractions? I don't think that's realistic at this point. I think it's going to happen, but we'll see. We'll go from there.
Yeah, I think a couple of things are different to me from a couple years ago. One, like you said, CB, they could, first of all, those first three opponents, it was East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green.
Right.
It was a little bit lighter. Jim Harbaugh was coaching during the week, so the game plan was in, and you could, kind of just put Jesse Minter in there. It was Sherrone Moore. The third game, Mike Hart and Jay Harbaugh split the second game. I mean, it's got to be first in college football history, right? You had two head coaches in one game, like planned before the game. Obviously, medically, something probably happened to Jerry Kill or something like that in the past. I remember that instance off the top of my head. I'm sure it happened to others, but so that was very, very unique. Secondly, that staff was loaded, right? You had future head coaches. He believed that all of them were going to be future head coaches, and some of them are now, including Sherrone Moore. So I see that a little different. The third thing is the rules have changed, where a Biff Poggi in the past would not have been able to be Michigan's head coach on an interim basis, and he wasn't there, but someone in that type of role. But now that any staffer can coach on the field and are coaching on the field, I think it'd be a little bit easier of a transition. And the third thing, or the fourth thing, I guess, however many things, is he has head coaching experience. He was just a head coach the last couple of years at Charlotte. He knows how to manage the clock, those sorts of things. I would imagine he's in a lot of those game plan meetings, even when Sherrone is there. But at the same time, I agree. A coordinator makes some sense. And Sherrone Moore knows firsthand that you can call the plays and be the coordinator and serve as interim head coach. He did it for 4 games in 2023 and beat Penn State and Ohio State as two of the most notable victories. So I could see that. But I do think that there are some unique challenges with Chip Lindsey. He's implementing his new offense. He's also coaching the quarterbacks. That's going to be, maybe tough. He doesn't have quite the relationships with the players as a new coach as somebody else would, and Wink Martindale being one of those guys that would. But, being a defensive guy, and that would maybe disrupt what he does during the game, could be a factor. So I could see all those possibilities, or some sort of dark horse type of thing, or someone on the message board today over at thewolverine.com recommended just bring Jack Harbaugh in and let him do it. He's won a national championship as a head coach with Western Kentucky in 2002. So we'll see what happens. But I think bringing Biff back, regardless of who it is, because he's still going to have a big role, is even more important now that this is on the table and looks like it's happening.
KT Travel says, surprise, Connor is the interim head coach, which I believe he hasn't been formally disciplined, so technically speaking, right? He
could be in June though, but
that's true.
Technically speaking, he could get them the death penalty if they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would talk about everyone wants them to show their middle finger to the NCAA. That would
That'd be the ultimate.
worth it.
that'd be do that and then some. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other lingering thoughts I had. I go back to I think this football team is going to be pretty good. I think they have a chance to crack that 12-team playoff, but having this kind of, and again, they'll destroy Central Michigan. That is what it is, but not having your head coach in a road Big Ten game mixed with, we have questions about the offensive line. I think there are going to be some growing pains that Bryce Underwood goes through just naturally as a freshman playing college football. That all of this still kind of lends itself to me where I said, I think this team will wind up being on the outside looking in of a playoff appearance, though not 2 games short of it or 3 games short of it like they were this past year. I think they'll probably go 9-3, but having this sort of uncertainty, even early on, I mean, you're growing, you're pulling momentum together. I don't think there's ever a great time to serve a suspension. I think that anyone who's not concerned about it, I think is underselling just how special a team and a group that was in 2023. I do have questions about how this will affect them in season, especially with 2 weeks out of it. He wouldn't be able to be there. So any other thoughts on the suspension at large or anything else that we're looking at here?
No, I just can't wait till it's all over, guys. I'm so sick of this crap. So, and it's been ongoing, and everybody's like, why does this keep coming up? Because it's an ongoing thing until it's resolved, right? Why are you reporting on this? Because it's news, because this is what's happening. And because this was always going to be the case, there was going to be some kind of punishment. There was going to be they were going to go in front of the Committee on Infractions. That hasn't happened yet. And until it's ended, we're going to keep reporting on it. So sorry, if you don't want to read it, don't read it. But at the same time, this is reality. You can stick your head in the sand, or you can watch it unfortunately unfold like we do day by day. And unfortunately, today was another one of those days which overshadowed an unbelievable day that I had interviewing Dusty May. By the way, this guy is such the real deal. I can't even tell you. Sitting down with him for a one-on-one for our basketball recruiting issue. Clay will tell you later how you can order the Wolverine, probably 800-421-7751. But Michigan basketball is really in great hands with Dusty May.
And the WolverineOnDemand.com is where you can get your copy as well. I couldn't agree more with wanting this to be over, and that Dusty May is an incredible coach. My only thoughts are, like, we always do this every offseason. I think it helped that they won the last 2 games last season, really tough, incredible victories, Ohio State and Alabama. But every offseason, everyone's favorite team is going to win 2 more games than they did the year before. Things are going to go exactly as planned. Like, there are scenarios out there where things do not go as planned, and this could be a big interruption in Michigan's season. It's not just the game days. Like, this is so much different than what Michigan went through back in 2023. And this is not as talented of a team as you mentioned earlier, Anthony, and the player leadership. I mean, just the experience and everybody they had.
And not to interrupt, but in a season where Sherrone needs to win too, like, you get some grace for what happened last year, because it was a transition year, and obviously you ended it on the highest note possible. You drop a 50 burger from the clouds, you beat Ohio State, you go through a month of bowl practices and beat, shorthanded, you beat Alabama, who played most of its guys. But this is like, they need to win now. I don't think the warm and fuzzies, I think we're gone pretty quickly.
Honeymoon's over.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. So
the honeymoon was over at Illinois last year. Like, I think
100%.
that if you go 2-2, and part of it wouldn't be Sherrone Moore's fault because the university suspended him and he would have missed the Nebraska game. Let's say they lose that, hypothetically. Of course, I could easily see them being 4-0 at that point, but just talking different scenarios through. And let's say he's 2-2 or they're 2-2. They do have a bye week, then they host Wisconsin, so a little bit of a reset. But you're looking at a coach that what could be also facing in the middle of an appeals process on another suspension, depending on what happens in June. as we talk through that scenario, that's 2-2 and really needs to win in the back, 2/3 of the season, like things could get dicey and pressure could mount really quickly. So, not predicting that necessarily, but this could be a big interruption in what is a massive, massive season for Sherrone Moore after, things were a little bit rocky last year and they lost 5 regular season games. So they've got to just find a way to get through those 2 weeks. They've got some time to prepare and think through what those weeks are going to be like. So I guess we'll see, but it's not a small thing that he's missing. It's not just a 2 game. It's like almost double what Jim Harbaugh faced in those weeks, because it's the game and more importantly, the week. I think that's more important.
Well, especially, and again, not trying to put negative energy out there, but okay, so they don't, he's not going to be suspended for the Oklahoma game. Well, what if they go down to Oklahoma, they get beaten, and that kind of tests your response as a program. Like any loss, the only thing that matters after it is what comes next, and what would come next is now he's gone for 2 weeks. And
that Sunday he's gone. Yeah.
Basically, you land back in Ann Arbor, whatever, probably sometime in the middle of the night, and then you don't see him for 2 weeks. So this is it's not insignificant. And I would just say, like, again, the fact that 2023 team was able to kind of rally through that and win, don't just assume that it's just plug and play, with the guys we have, they're going to get through that. I think this is still potentially very serious for them to deal with. And I guess the point of it is that punishments hurt, and it's something you have to deal with. So I think that's it for me on this topic. I know we have a lot of questions from our message board on it. Maybe some of it will be overlap here, but I'd love to just kind of get through those and then probably wrap a little early tonight, if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we will head over to, these are all from, and again, we are live, so if you guys are in the chat, you can move yourself to the front of the line using that super chat feature. You can ask questions in the chat. We'll bring them up. We'll start with this one from Mr. Dave while I head over to the board and grab a few. He says, is there still a chance of vacated wins and championships? We talked about this. How surprised would you be if it happened? Has the NCAA indicated how much longer the investigation will last?
Yeah, it's not just us saying it. This has not been an issue. I've asked this question of people at Michigan so many times, and they said there's been no talk of that. They don't anticipate that at all. What would they be, punishing them for? The vacated wins? They weren't using ineligible players or anything like that. And postseason ban, no. In fact, we aren't the only ones saying it. It's been every reputable reporter out there. So at this point, would anything surprise me with the NCAA? No. Say something broke down with these negotiations, and all of a sudden Michigan said, nope, we're not going to. In fact, we're not going to punish Sherrone after all. Then maybe the NCAA goes nuclear and says, all right, well, then this is all back on the table and let's litigate it. All I know is that Michigan is going to, they say, if there's any more overstepping than maybe a few games for Sherrone, which I think a lot of people already think is a pretty severe punishment for deleting some innocuous texts, that they will fight it. Now, we know Michigan is Michigan too, right? And, they've rolled over at times, but again, nothing to indicate that any of that is on the table or has been on the table.
I get why fans ask it a lot, because it's kind of the worst, thing in the back of their head of, at least I just want to know at least that's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't make, not that things that the NCAA does make sense, but wouldn't make any sense and really doesn't. And I mean, Connor Stallings wasn't even around for most of that 2023 season. So I don't know why that year gets talked about as like something that's in question more than the other years when he was there the whole time. It's just part of the kind of conversation out there in the ether right now. But I would be shocked if something like that happened.
To quote the NCAA president, Michigan, nobody questions whether Michigan won it fair and square.
And he hasn't been on Twitter then if he says that, because I've seen a lot of that. Ohio State fans.
Yeah, for anyone who's asked about the text messages too, those are out there. I think by and large, Sherrone had said last summer, whatever it was. I hope they're released, because there's nothing there, and there was nothing there. I think there were a few that had made reference to opponent signals, but nothing about sign stealing scandal or anything like that. So let's take this. Wow, I didn't expect this to be first on the pile here, but it's from Clayton Safi on the fort. He says, was Santa Ono's departure a sign of the punishments to come?
No. had nothing to do with anything. So, and in fact, it's while it's not a contentious divorce, I guess you would say. I think, as John Bacon wrote, a local journalist and professor, this is I think a lot of people aren't sorry to see him go. And he was always great with athletics. Our dealings with him, anytime we interviewed him, he was fantastic. But I guess on the non-athletics side of things, there were, he just wasn't a great decision maker. So what we were told this morning from people close to it, they've got candidates lining up. They will have an unbelievable president within the next 6 months. But this has completely nothing to do with anything to do with athletics here or what's been going on with the sign stealing thing.
Yeah, and obviously I was joking, Anthony. So thanks for reading that one. But
Clay.
No, I mean, yeah, Santana was a pro athletics president, so I think it's notable, like on the athletics side. And honestly, it was notable when Mark Schlissel moved on because he was somewhat anti-athletics, or maybe not somewhat. So we'll see and evaluate, when they get a new president. But yeah, I mean, guy leaves, people trash him. Guys here, people seem to like him. Different factions. It's, a lot goes on. It's been a really eventful 3 years, I think, for Santana. So, a week ago, I didn't think one way or the other about how he was doing. I'm not necessarily going to trash the guy on the way out either. And hopefully he has a good rest of his career at Florida.
Rest of his career. Yeah. I've kind of gleaned that he's kind of like the Larry Brown of university presidents, where he just kind of hops around every couple of years. And that's a profession that lends itself to that. So
and they both won championships in the state of Michigan. I don't know. Some people are starting to credit Santana for winning the national title.
Hey, I'll give him credit. Somebody mentioned today, they said he really stood up strong against Tony Petitti. That might be his legacy, right? And a couple moves on the basketball side, I think, that may not have happened. So, he was a pro athletics president. That's the first one. I think Mary Sue Coleman might have been back in the day, but hopefully they get somebody who doesn't want it to go away, some of these other academics that we've had.
If you can get a new president who's like even just athletics neutral, that's fine for Michigan.
Absolutely.
The other guy was like, remind me of the Meisterburger from Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Just sourpuss. Someone out there will get that reference. Let's see. Let's go to this one from. Sorry, I lost my tab.
That was Heat Miser and Cold Miser, wasn't it?
Well, that's the year without a Santa Claus.
Oh, that's right.
We don't need to get into that.
Okay.
CT Blue 72 wants to know, if Michigan can't comment on an ongoing investigation, how come the NCAA can continue to get away with it?
Great question. And if they were to litigate, I would think that would be one of the things that they would bring up, right? One of your executives was talking about how, no, it's not just a burger and this and that, and there are all these leaks. And we've seen there've been a lot less leaks now, right, than there were during the Burgergate investigation. So I think people are starting to take it to heart that they need to keep their mouths shut, but they want to make an example of Michigan. I think that's pretty clear. And I don't think that is really being paranoid about it. I think it's pretty clear that they did not like Jim Harbaugh. They wanted him out of football. And we aren't the only ones saying that. There are national people saying the same things. That, my God, you would think that he was breaking every rule in the book, when in fact maybe he was traveling into some gray areas. If you look at Signgate and what Connor Stallions did by the letter of the law, did he really break any rules? Were there really any violations? So maybe a couple when it comes to, but and even then the whole scouting thing was because it was unfair to smaller schools who didn't have the money to do it, right? It wasn't because they thought there was a competitive advantage there. So all this talk about, oh, they cheated, so on and so forth. Yeah, not seeing it.
Agree.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize this, but the flip side of why that wasn't overturned is that 12 of the 32 conferences, it was only 12 of the 32 conferences that were in favor of abolishing that rule, and the Big Ten was one of them that voted against it, or against repealing it. So, hey, you learn something new every day. I don't really have any others here. I think we've pretty much covered it at length. I will add a question here, though, as a tease for what you have coming up, Chris. Is there anything you can give us from Dusty May that you found most interesting from your chat?
I would say that he is extremely confident in his team next year. How's that? And loves the way that things are going with his team and recruiting. This guy is so involved in the day to day. It seems like he never takes a minute off, right? And his phone was ringing like crazy when we were talking. I have just been so impressed with just the fit. Number one, number two, how comfortable he is at Michigan and in this environment. So I can't wait, guys, to see the next team that he puts on the floor. When he was talking about some of the replacements, some of the transfers, they got to tell you what, 2 freshmen are going to play, at least 2. They really, really like what they've got from their freshman class. He thinks this is an amazing haul. So we will talk about that in some articles coming up. But man, some great days ahead for Michigan basketball.
Yeah, I'm excited. We are in the month of May now as Yaxel Lendeborg watch continues. Chris, I said the name right that time.
You did.
I believe his deadline is May 28th. So we'll see if something comes of that before that. I believe the combine is the 11th through the 18th. Is that correct? So
that is correct. Yep. And Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf, and Yaxel Lendeborg, all 3 will be participating. So a lot to watch.
Heard that I did hear that Yaxel had a couple good workouts for NBA teams. So at the same time, I'm pretty optimistic at this point, more optimistic than I've been. Just a hunch that hey, maybe we'll see him in Ann Arbor.
It's funny, like you have a positive,
unrelated.
I was just going to say you have a positive.
Has absolutely nothing to do with what transpired at any other point today.
Okay.
You have a positive workout. All Michigan fans are hoping he sucks.
Yeah, I know.
But then if he came here, you want him to be really good. It is a weird thing. I don't blame them for feeling
dynamic, right? It's like, be good, but just don't be good enough to get that first round guarantee.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a weird situation, and it won't be the last time it happens. So I guess we all got to get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's a good spot to wrap for today. A little less of a show, but a little longer ranging topic given Monday's events. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates from all spheres of Michigan athletics, whether it's football, basketball, recruiting. We've got you covered here. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access for a single $1. It's the best deal in America. Take advantage of that. And did I miss anything else housekeeping wise? No, I'll be kind to each other. Our football preview is now up for pre-order at thewolverineondemand.com. What else you got, Clayton?
I'm going to go have a beautiful taco bowl after this, so I'm excited. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
That's right. I did get that DoorDash to the house just before going live. So street tacos have been consumed.
Oh, nice.
And then who knows? I might mess around, edit this show, and have a margarita while I'm doing it. So for Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll talk to you later this week.